I transformed my mudroom. Hi, I'm Angela Rose, and today I'm going to show you how I took this empty space in my house and turned it into a really functional mudroom for me and my 3 kids. So I have this awkward empty space in my house, and I have 3 kids, and I decided that this is the perfect place for a mudroom area where my kids can put their backpacks, their jackets, their shoes. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking 3, maybe 4 lockers. If we get 4, then we've got room for me. A place underneath for shoes, maybe little cubbies up above for hats and things like that. So my inspiration for this mudroom, I searched through a bunch of pictures and I found a theme, and that theme was that I liked moody, I liked dark. I also like really simple, clean lines. I also know my kids, and I know that there was no way in heck that they were actually going to be opening and closing lockers. So I decided to go with a really kind of simple, open locker look, but I always like to add in some warmth, and so I also decided to add in some of those wood tones by staining the bench at the bottom. So I drew up this plan very fancily on some notebook paper, and I decided that I wanted 4 lockers, 1 for each of my kids and 1 for me, because I count too. So now I wanted to actually visualize in the space. I needed to make sure, first of all, that each of these little cubbies is going to be big enough for the kids' backpacks or it's worthless. And then I also want the seat height to be at exactly the right spot for my little 7-year-old to be able to step up on and maybe hook her backpack. Taping it out makes it so much easier. So for this project, I used my go-to expert lumber sourcers, 84 Lumber. So they're awesome because I call them, I go in the store, I talk with them, and they consult with me and they give me their expert advice on what to get. And then I can also have things delivered to my house. You guys, I used to cram everything in my minivan, but no more. So they can get you whatever you need in the dimensions that you need. For this project, I used 6-inch wide MDF pre-primed shiplap. I also used a bunch of pre-primed pine as well. 84 Lumber! It really does make it so much easier. When that stuff's delivered right to my house, I'm like, yes. Also, for a tutorial on how to use a table saw, I've got you covered. So now it's time to build the bench. Okay, after I cut the boards, I actually put them in place to visualize yet again and see what I thought. And immediately when I put them into place, I was going, this is looking a little bit flimsy. And one of my tricks that I always use is to face frame things out and make it look thicker. And so that's what I did with the top. We've got that 3/4 inch plywood, and I put a face trim on it, and so that makes it look like a solid, thicker piece. But I noticed I also wanted the legs to look thicker. So I decided to double stack that plywood together, and then when I put the face frame on it, it made the whole thing look like substantial and sturdy and like it was meant to be there. All right, and now for the lockers. Remember, we're doing 4 of these, 3 for the kids, 1 for me. And just like always, I'm visualizing again by placing all the boards that I just cut, and very quickly, I start to realize the same thing with the bench, which is that it's looking a little bit too thin and flimsy. So I double these suckers up too. That way it matches the bench and it both looks substantial. So see how this looks a little bit flimsy? Just wait for it. It's all gonna be okay, because I'm gonna fix it and make it match the bench in just a second. Whoopsies. I'm also mocking up here the very top little cubby where there's gonna be baskets for their hats, and then I'm ready to actually go build this thing. So I've got my doubled up pre-primed pine, and I have spacers between each to make sure that each locker is even. So the lockers are done. And now the cute top shelves. Now I'm gonna make these to match the cubbies exactly. So I knew what those dimensions were. And again, I doubled up the insides just so that they had the same thickness. And the moment of truth, it fits! I'm always so relieved when that actually happens. Once I have it in there, I secure it to the walls, I secure it to the cubbies below it, and then you know the drill. I face framed it out to also make it gorgeous and match. For the face frame, I like to use a little bit of glue in addition to the nails. That way it doesn't ever slide off and you know that it's just staying put. I was just picturing like my kids holding onto the lockers and pulling, and nails actually allow things to just slide out, and so I'm like, we're gluing those suckers on. And this is when it starts getting pretty. We're talking shiplap, we're talking vertical paneling, and this was a little bit tricky because no size was gonna make it fit exactly into these cubbies. So I used a 6-inch wide MDF pre-primed paneling from 84 lumber, but I actually had to use my table saw to rip down the sides of it to make it fit. I decided to make these each have evenly spaced paneling, okay? I didn't want like a half a plank in one and then an eighth plank in another. So you'll notice that all of these are matching, and you can thank me later because I know that it just makes your eyes feel so much happier for everybody who deals with a little bit of OCD like I do. I even shiplapped in the top, in the bottom. I don't know if anybody's gonna see it down there, but you know what? I know that it's down there and it makes me happy. When I was nailing these up, I gave myself something to work with, and I put a board in the back on the top, middle, and bottom, and I actually made sure to pay attention to know where I was gonna put the hook at the end. That way there was some support behind this MDF paneling to be extra strong for these backpacks. Okay, you guys, this is the fun part and the nerve-wracking part, the arches. I saw this image with these most gorgeous arches, and I knew I had to have them, but I also didn't know how to make them. Usually every time I have something with an arch or a circle, I get a bowl or a cup and I trace it and it turns out perfectly. But I'm like, how am I supposed to replicate this shape? It's odd. So I came up with the best idea that I could, and that was to draw a shape that I thought mirrored it. And then what I did is I picked 4 points along the side of this arch. So we measured over a ½ inch, an inch, 2 inches, 4 inches, and then I'm writing down how far up it is. That way I'm going to be doing those other points over here and we can mirror them. Mark 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this is where the really fun part comes. I ordered a floppy ruler because I wanted to be able to connect all of those points and then trace along it to give a nice, smooth, perfect arch. Then you multiply that by 4. Once I had the arches all drawn out, I got out my jigsaw and I calmed my nerves because this was stressful. I did not want to mess it up. With each subsequent arch, my cutting skills got better and better and better, and by the 4th one, I'm telling you, I nailed it. I sanded it to give it a nice, smooth, kind of rounded edge look. The moment of truth, walking in with this arches board, and it fits, and it looks perfect. It's gorgeous. It's freaking cute. That's freaking cute. These arches are so cute. And I finished it off with a little bit of trim on the top. Oh, I love it. And now my least favorite part of the project, but super important, paint prep. I hate this. Do you guys know how many hours I probably spent prepping for paint? I think I calculated and it was like 12. So this used to be a hot mess where it was like all uneven, and now, once it's cleaned up and painted, it's gonna look just completely smooth and perfect. You won't even be able to tell where these joints are. So in my house, all of the doors are this gorgeous iron ore color. This is a soft bluish grayish black. And I think that if I just paint the mudroom this color, then it'll coordinate with everything else, or maybe it's lame. Now I wanted this to be a completely glass, perfect finish. And I have the best friend who does the most beautiful paint jobs. And so I decided to use him because I didn't want any brush strokes, any roller marks. Spraying it was. We've got 1, 2, or 3. Which would you pick? They're all so cute.
So this is unlacquered brass. And with unlacquered brass, it does eventually age, but there is a way to speed up that aging process. I use a brass ager, and then it gets this beautiful, earthy, aged finish. Let me show you.
So I take each piece and I hold it in this ager solution for about 10 seconds. This piece was too big to actually fit all in at once, so then I flip it over another 10 seconds, and then I wipe off all of the solution. And then I use steel wool and kind of buff out any of the unevenness and just kind of brighten it up a little bit.
And look at that. Now they look aged, they look gorgeous, earthy. Oh, I love it.
So for installing these hooks, they each came with their own hardware. I pre-drilled and got everything exactly centered in the right spot, attached it on, prayed that it would hold the backpacks, and it's strong. It looks gorgeous. Now, I love adding a little extra touch to each of my spaces, and I thought that these nameplates were the perfect little touch to just really claim this space as ours. So for the stain, I wanted something really rich and really warm, and so I went with Special Walnut, and it was the perfect color. Now I made sure to use wood conditioner. If you want to learn how to stain correctly, check out my DIY 101 stain video. But some parts didn't stain evenly because of some wood glue that I left on too long. Have no fear, because I've got a really cool solution involving colored pencils and markers. I find the perfect combination, and you can't even tell. I wanted the perfect place to hang my purse or keys or things like that, and I am obsessed with these knobs. Do you see that green, that stone? As if I wasn't in love with this space enough. And you guys, the mudroom is done, and it is gorgeous. It's everything that I pictured. I remember first walking into my home and seeing this empty, forgotten space and picturing exactly this mudroom with these lockers, and I am thrilled with how it turned out. It almost makes me excited to take on and off my shoes every day, and I bet my kids are gonna love hanging up their backpacks. Well, that's it. I hope you loved the video. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any other projects or tutorials, and make sure to comment below with what the mudroom in your house looks like. Bye.